Hello and welcome to Bharat I'm Brigadier Chatterjee. We're going to be talking about the Galwan incident that happened on 15th of June 2020, if you recall. To give you some details and help you recall the incident, well, on that day we lost 20 men and the Chinese lost approximately 42 or 43 men. And all this happened, the whole thing, it was all building up to this since the previous month, that is May 2020, when we had incursions by the Chinese all across the line of actual control. However, between May and June, what really built up in size and the after effect at the end of the day was what we saw in Galwan, was in the Ladakh area, eastern Ladakh area to be more specific. We'll go over this incident, but not as much on the incident as on the effects of the incident on our thinking, on our deployment, on certain other issues that concern our armed forces today. And to carry us through this discussion, I have with me Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma. Welcome, General Rakesh Sharma. Thank you so much for having found time for us. He was the Adjutant General when he retired, and he's also with the VIF right now. He's a distinguished fellow in the VIF. And of course, today, he's been kind enough to find time for us. Right, General, if you're comfortable, I'll shoot my first question. And that is, let's first have a look at it at the strategic level. China has quite a few objectives. You see, Taiwan's one of them. Well, dominating South China Sea and dominating all the countries there are also part of his objectives. If you look at all those objectives that China has, and Xi certainly couldn't be fulfilling all his wishes all in a single lifetime. So how do you see the threat that we face as India? Are they going to be, in your opinion, really activating this kind of a front too early, or will it be in sequence thought of much later?
So thank you for inviting me. It's an honor for me. Now, see, in 4 years, much has been written about it. And there are a large number of opinions and large number of people who have different ideas on it. So what I state is my views on the same issue. Now, any nation which aspires to become a great power and has a dream, like Chinese dream as he calls it, or a great rejuvenation or century of humiliation, those cliches that the Chinese use, it is important for them to start moving to become a great power. No nation can become a great power if it has got inimical neighbors. And it has got neighbors which have got problematic borders and problematic situations there. China has a poor geography. It's got a long border with us, which is contested, the disputed border. And it's got similar problems around the South China Sea, which you have alluded to, with Japan, with Taiwan. So there is a problem here. To come up to that level that the Chinese want to come in 2049, they have to put some borders at rest so that they can expand forward. So it is my opinion that there is an attempt made deliberately to put the border on the India-China border to be more benign in nature. It was a malignant border. Last 20-30 years, there used to be scuffles and fisticuffs and so many problems used to happen there. So he has attempted not only to reach his 1959 line, which has got no bias, no relevance. I mean, there's no logic to 1959 line, but attempt to 1959 line and to make sure that the border is controlled and sealed to his advantage of what he wants it. To me, Galwan is just one incident which happened to the manifestation of the whole thing that the Chinese tried, in eastern Ladakh specifically, and they had wanted to finish the borders issue and make it more benign and retain. So, did the Chinese want territory from us? Okay, there is an issue of sovereignty that they keep talking about, but other than the sovereignty, it is the issue of geopolitical pressure to us. And it's a long drawn pressure that has been brought across to India by virtue of what the Chinese did in 2020. In many ways, we must thank President Xi. It woke us up. It woke us up to a threat. Now, having said that, what is now transpired in consequent to 2020 is that the Chinese are occupying certain areas. See, first and foremost is that line of actual control is a very incurably faulty concept. A line means, your house, my house is a line. It is a decision between you and me. This is the line. If you and me don't decide which is the line, then where is the line? Then, your perception, my perception of your line and your perception of my line. So line becomes a confused issue. So line of actual control remained a faulty issue here. And the Chinese have brought the issue to a place where they seem to be, with the buffers created there, instead of line, it becomes a belt of actual control. And it is now they're sitting on the watershed, largely the watershed, with these buffers here, and creating villages as the inhabitants out there. So I think the attempt was to make the border benign, so that now Chinese can think largely on the other side, the maritime frontier and the other threats that you got, which you are referring to.
Right. And let's go a little further. You said quite correctly that possibly it helped us. We woke up to it. Now, if you recall, just before that, and even after that, for some time at least, our attention had been more westwards, towards Pakistan, I would say, to refer directly, and not really northwards towards China. But this entire game that was played out in eastern Ladakh, it reoriented us. We did some reorientation in terms of tasking of our formations, their affiliation, the reorientation done. Would you like to go into the larger details of that?
So, you see, over a period of time, since a large number of treaties were being signed with the Chinese, the agreements, from actually the JWG Joint Working Group started in 1982, then the Rajiv Gandhi's visit in 88, and then thereafter 93, 96, and there were so many treaties signed till 2013. There was a feel that the relationship was improving, the trade was improving. So there was a little, I won't say there's a complacency here, but we were not keeping the border so active. We were not deployed on the border the way borders are deployed. There was a kind of trust there.
In fact, let me tell you, I think at some stage around 93 or so, after the agreement, there was a 1/3 or 2/3 withdrawal from the border. Like for 3 batteries, we had only 1 battery there. For 4 companies, possibly we had 1 or 2.
True. And also, Eastern Ladakh was in a circuit with Siachen Glacier. So the troops were circuiting there, there was a kind of a chair there. And that, 90s, there was more, problems in the valley floor. So the formations that moved to the valley floor also. So there was no, that kind of pressure built onto the Eastern Ladakh border. So subsequently, from 2013, the things were hotting up. There was an incident happened in 2013, 22 days standoff in Depsang Berg. There was one which happened in 2014, Chumar, where we had large number of forces employed against each other. Then again happened in Dokram, 72 days. In between, there was a whole lot of skirmishes were happening. So the events were building up to 2020. Now, I would take a step back and say, was there trust between us and China? Look, when there were skirmishes happening, the protocols were being followed. So the forces used to move away and go back to the respective bases. So you say, okay, there is a problem of a border, but forces were still not fighting each other and all that. Now that trust finished in 2020. Now the trust means that we have understood that if you leave an area open along the 3,488 kilometers of border from Karakoram Pass to Kibutu in Arunachal Pradesh, the Chinese will come and sit down. Whether they do it or don't do it is a separate issue. It is in our mind, it has come as a fixation that there will be distrust here. And the distrust makes it that we have to now occupy the border in a manner so that in any place the Chinese can make an ingress, we are there to contest it. Next time Chinese want to occupy area, Barawoti, Shipkila, anywhere, they have to fight out. Now, to do that, you require tremendous amount of elevation of force levels in the entire area. This elevated deployment could only take place by revising what was deployed on the western border. And of course, Pakistan was also helping us. Pakistan's internal economy went for a 6. They had a tremendous amount of problem, 12 governments. No government has actually lasted a 5-year tenure in Pakistan. So I think a good study was carried out, and there was a refocus on formations, and the formation implied some formation was shifted upwards. And also, as you know well, there's acclimatization issue. You can't keep people in the plains in India and say, yeah, you land up in for operations across there. The time lag is 14 days, and you can't take a chance because health issues out here. So now forces will have to be placed there permanently. That revision, what is called mirror deployment, or what's been called as redeployment of forces from western border, was all we were forced into it because of this threat which has come elevated to much higher levels.
Right. Let's go to the next issue that I have in mind. And this is about surveillance. There was a sudden deficiency which was noticed during the 2020 conflict, or whatever, limited conflict that we had, and the follow-up movement of troops, etc. Has that been addressed? Are our surveillance resources adequate now? Do we have more of them?
So, Brigadier Chatterjee, I will take again a step backwards. You see, there are two things which lead to a problem here. One is the will or intent, and second is the capacities. Now, a will comes to strategic intelligence. You are referring to ISR there. I'll say, did we have that time the strategic intelligence to place Chinese thought processes what were against us? Now, nobody can come in 2020 at 15,000 feet or 16,000 feet and sit down. They require to do training, they require to mass forces. It takes 5-6 months period. So the Chinese were planning over a period of time. Maybe later half of 2019 it was being planned that they will do an operation. So they brought their forces into this area for training in January, February 2020. We did not have a strategic intelligence, strategic intent. What did the China? The forces were there, the capacities were built on, but intent was not known. So we start from firstly knowledge of a strategic intelligence, which is absolutely important as what the adversary wants to do. That I think we have to work on. We are still working on it. Exercise in progress. But to say that now over a period of time, the ISR, which is operational and tactical intelligence, was very weak. There was the system. For example, the satellite imageries would come in Delhi and they get deciphered and then they are sent across up the chain. The time taken was, there were no drones, zero, zilch, not a drone in sight. There were, whatever there was a visibility. And of course, what you could hear, electronic intelligence, not much. I think the steps taken in 4 years are very credible. So now units have drones of all kinds of drones, and they have quadcopters, and they have bigger drones. And another 6-7 years ago, they said a drone can't fly at that altitude because it can't cross the passes from Leh, cross the pass to go across. And I think all that have been circumvented. So the intelligence has gone up way higher.
But okay. The next thing that I want to talk about is more operational. It's about tanks in high altitude, places like Eastern Ladakh I'm referring to. I hardly had anything called armor in that place before. But we fielded our T-72 tanks. We possibly fielded some T-90. I'm not very sure about it. But T-72 we definitely fielded over there. It wasn't found so suitable really. We've gone in for some other lighter tank. What is the state of affairs now?
So lighter tank, okay, light tanks is still in the way. It's some time away. What is being called Zorawar, it won't be ready for some time. But tanks were there. There were regiments there. There were 2 to 3 regiments in Eastern Ladakh, including 2 to 3 mechanized battalions. So there was a force level there. There was an armored brigade there existing. I'm talking about when I was commanding a corps. I'm talking about 13, 14. So they existed there. Only thing, they were not deployed so far forward. We could keep them in some areas in the depth. Consequent to this one, and having noticed that the Chinese tanks Chinese have brought air vehicles so close to the side chain, Tepsang Bulge, we had to redo things. It implied not only that you required a road to take the tanks across there, because there is a Shok River, other side there is Indus River, which require bridges to be crossed over. So the whole effort was there. But when 2020 happened, if you recollect Razangla, Rechingla, we moved the tanks up. Herculean task. Firstly, to take the tanks from Leh, firstly to land them by Leh, so where they were largely carried by aircraft or brought on wheels, and then taken by tracks across to the forward areas, and then even transported right up to Razangla.
It's almost an impossible task the other day.
It's very difficult. And I remember once I was there when the tank was there. The roads take a sharp U-turn towards the Bailey Bridge and then turn across there. So the tanks are not able to swivel. There's so many problems. And many times you have to remove the turrets and many things and moved. So we moved the tanks on top. T-72s were moved on Razangla border and they were face to face with the Chinese tanks. Well, amne samne, they were facing each other. But subsequently we have, and also it's not a question of a tank. See, the temperatures are so low, how do you sustain a tank? The engine would seize, the gaskets will crackle, and the engine oils will yeah, so there are major issues. And it's not that you can take a tank to a workshop with a gantry which removes the engine and there is no gantries, there is no engine replacement. So all this has to be managed very effectively and keep the tank at a temperature so that it can sustain itself. So all that was done over a period of last 4 years, and the tanks have now, including storage of ammunition and storage of fuel. It has to be kept in some safe areas, otherwise you could be hit. So all these things have been happening over a period of time, and T-72s have reached. But I'll take a step back here. The areas are gullies. Gullies, small passageways. The largest one being, say, Chipchap Valley, which is opposite DPO, which is between 3 and 5 kilometers. Now, it's only 3 and 5 kilometers long. The Rocky
Palm Avenue.
That's the only avenue available. Other side, the tall mountains. Or you go across to Raki Nala, which is 1 kilometer wide. Or any one of these other places are 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers wide. So the tank deployment in that areas, because of the constricted nature of terrain in mountains at 18,000 feet, you can take it only to select few places. So you could take it to Razangla, where it goes up, the pass is very wide. But it can't be done all over the board. So while maybe lighter tanks will be a fair idea in future, but finally the tank has to go through that gully. It is not that you're driving across into deserts where 500 meters between each tank. All this is not there. The employments will have to be varied also.
Well, one question more again about operational issues. It's regarding firepower. See, it's a lesson that's come to us, let's say, from Ukraine also. Otherwise, in mountains also, in any case, the same lesson emanates in wherever you analyze a battle. That in today's atmosphere, especially, when you have the killing power of, let's say, close support weapons of an infantry battalion in defense being so high that it's very difficult for an infantry battalion to really charge through this. But it's very dense. So what you have to depend on your, let's say, firepower means which are from a distance, like the artillery or like the missiles, etc., which are going to give you this thing, a certain amount of advantage, soften up to that point. Now, have we paid enough attention in this period to beef up our artillery to ensure that it has this necessary resources? And the issue that's important is, do we have the precision weapons required for today's engagement?
So start with the last one first. No country can afford 100% precision weapons. It's too expensive. But if you learn from what has been happening in Iran and Israel, or Ukraine and Russia, even the dumb bombs have been made smarter by either putting them into sensor systems or by using a drone. So a drone directs the fire automatically. When follower shot is seen by the drone and automatically conveyed the variation to the gun position, where automatically it's fed on. And so it is the system of having a dumb bomb also acting like a precision bomb has arrived. That's a very dramatic shift. But having said that, if you see what the Iranians threw recently against, there were 330 weapons. Yeah. There were 170 various types of drones, from an FPV drone, small drones to big drones. Of course, there are two countries to be passed, so they require bigger drones. But actually, what they learned from Russians are using between a quadcopter to a first-person view drone to the Chinese DJI drones or bigger drones altogether. Some loitering ammunition, some artillery fire, long-range artillery fire, and then they, of course, use missiles and hypersonic missiles. All made in a manner as a package that they land at the target area together. This is new war. This is new war because between an area of say 300 kilometers in Israel, there were 330 weapon systems to landing up together. That requires tremendous amount of air defense. And air defense, if you see, had required 4 countries to ward off against Iranian threat against Israel. 4 countries. Now, we need to start thinking of this typology of warfare. This is all changing. We have individual weapon systems, the S-400s, not all of them, but S-400s, or Pralay missiles, or hypersonic missiles, which we have tested. Maybe we have long-range artillery. We require a longer range. Chinese fire PCL-191, which they say is a range of 500 kilometers. Artillery, multi-barrel. So, we need to now elevate ourselves to that kind of firing prowess, all with all the types of drones possible. I think we are moving to that direction.
Well, actually, if you range 500 kilometers, you'll have to have observations also available at 500 kilometers ahead of you. Well, I had many more questions actually, General, but I think we'll wind up over here. I know you have a commitment straight after this. Thank you so much. I think it was a very interesting discussion. Our viewers would have found it really interesting.
Thank you, Bharat. Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you, viewers. Thanks for tuning in to BharatShakti.in. Do tune in like this now and then, and you will find such interesting stories.